Hello and welcome everyone to this special webinar event, Chaos to Control, AI-powered SOC transformation for the next gen threat defense. Today's webinar is brought to you by Abnormal AI and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Mackenzie Puttesy with Actual Tech Media, a future B2B company, and I will be your moderator for today's session. Security teams are under siege. AI-powered cyber attacks are growing faster, smarter, and more evasive, slipping past legacy defenses and exploiting human trust at scale. With business email compromise alone draining 55 billion from organizations since 2013, the stakes have never been higher. Which is why today we have Abnormal AI's field CISO here to share how leading organizations are turning the tide. With years of frontline experience, Mick will reveal how to harness intelligent automation to radically transform your SOC from a reactive cost center to a proactive business enabler. You'll walk away knowing how to slash investigative times from hours to minutes and outpace your competitors and adversaries, adding massive value to your business. As you can tell, this is going to be a compelling conversation, and frankly, I cannot wait to get our speaker on stage. But right before I do, I'm going to give you all a quick rundown of your audience console so you can get the most out of today's webinar. Now, introductions are always in order. Again, my name is Mackenzie. I've seen a lot of highs, hellos, good mornings popping in into that chat tab there. So if you haven't yet seen the chat tab and you're just getting orientated, no problem. On the upper right-hand side of your console, you should see that tab there. And it'd be great to see some highs, hellos, bonjour, aloha, good morning, whatever greeting you want to send to your fellow attendees here on the webinar and get the energy flowing around on the session today. Now, the chat tab is where you can give your ideas, stories, comments, hot feedback, anything that comes up during the session. Feel free to throw it in there. We love to see it. This is also the perfect place to let us know if you're having any technical issues at all today. Hopefully nothing befalls you, but if you are having some tech gremlins bugging you, well, this is the perfect place to let us know. And myself and Deanna, who's our webinar coordinator, running things in the background, making sure things go smoothly, will be here to help. Now, a quick browser refresh does usually fix any sort of issues with slides, audio, video not loading, but if things persist, feel free to reach out. We also have light mode on the console, so if you want to toggle that on, it does drop down some of the features, but if you're on limited bandwidth, traveling on the move, well, that might be the best way to approach it. Now, if you have questions for our expert presenter today, well, please don't put those in the chat tab, but rather two tabs over on the Q&A section of your console. This is where I'm going to be taking a look at what questions come in, and we are guarding some time at the end of this session for a live Q&A with our presenter. This is one of the best things, one of the biggest value adds to these sessions is that we get to, pick the brains of these presenters in real time. So don't waste that. Don't squander it. Send in all your questions, and we'll do our best to pick as many of those to ask Mick as possible. Finally, we've got the docs tab there. So this is where you can get a great follow-up from Abnormal AI. This is actually a risk assessment. We'll be talking a little bit more about that later in the session. But if you're curious and you want to poke in there right away, grab it, take a look, well, it is there for you as well. And if all this awesome information wasn't enough of a great giveaway, well, we do have a $250 Amazon gift card up for grabs on today's session. You do need to be live and present for the duration of the webinar to qualify for the prize, and you will also find the prize terms and conditions linked there in the docs tab. But other than that, I think we are pretty much ready to get things rolling here. So I'm going to do a quick introduction of our speaker. Mick Leach is the field CISO at Abnormal AI. Now, Abnormal AI is an AI native email security company that uses behavioral AI to prevent business email compromise, vendor fraud, and other socially engineered attacks. Mick is responsible for threat hunting and analysis, engaging with customers, and is a featured speaker at global industry conferences and events like this one. And so, Mick, with that, I don't want to steal your thunder. I am going to hand things over to you and let you do what you do best. Take it away.
All right. Well, thanks, Mackenzie. I appreciate that. Welcome, everyone, to Chaos to Control AI-powered SOC transformation for next-gen threat defense. So you heard a little bit about me from Mackenzie, but just a little bit more about me. I am a field CISO here at Abnormal. Been here about 4 years. Prior to that, U.S. Army veteran, so Scouts out for anybody who knows what that means. I've been doing IT things since upgrading Windows 3.11 to Windows 95. Yes, all 13 floppy disks worth for those that remember that. And maybe have some gray in here or up here, or maybe nothing up here. Yes, you're probably my people at this point. I've been doing information security things since the iPhone was introduced. I don't mean the 17 that just came out last week. I'm talking about the original iPhone. And I've had the privilege and pleasure of leading security operations organizations since CryptoLocker started the ransomware craze we all know and love. You see, saying it this way makes me feel a little less old than giving actual dates, but suffice it to say, I've been around the industry for a minute or two. As I mentioned, I've been a SOC leader at two Fortune 500 companies, big fan of SANS and GIAC and Gartner, currently holds seven GIAC certifications. And when I'm not discussing operational metrics or digging through logs, you can probably find me on a soccer field somewhere coaching one of my 13 kiddos. So that's a little bit about me. But the real question is, as we get into security operations, I found that there is a profound difference between what it is people think we do versus what it really looks like. And this was never, for me at least, more profound than the difference between, career day at your kid's school or take your kid to work day. So career day at my kids' school, I've had several opportunities to go into school, tell the class that I do cybersecurity for a living, basically like a hacker hunter. And I'll tell you what, my kids think, and their classmates, they think that my kid's dad is the coolest guy on the planet. It sounds so cool. And it sounds like we're on the front lines defending the forces of, from the defending the world from the forces of darkness. And while that's certainly true, it never quite looks the way we envision that it looks. And that was more evident on Take Your Kid to Work Day. So I took my kiddos to work one time, had a Fortune 100 insurance company that I was working for. They had this wonderful program where you bring your kiddos into the work. And they were incredibly unimpressed watching me work. So, they realized you basically just sit there at a desk and type all day, or maybe go into a conference room and talk about typing on a computer all day. Dad, your job kind of sucks. And I was like, well, it's actually more exciting when you know what's happening. But that's kind of the difference, right? In many cases, in security operations centers, it looks like you're combing through a big haystack looking for needles, and that's sometimes what it can feel like too. So if you look at what security operations centers teams are you know, w- uh, currently working on, there's a variety of challenges that they have at any given moment. Whether it's the inventory of assets, data protection, malware defenses, data recovery, everything is under their purview, and so it can sometimes feel a little overwhelming. And while we don't have time to unpack all of those challenges, today we really want to focus on the CIS control number 9, email and web browser protections. So we want to dig into this a little bit deeper. So when we think about email protection, what are the challenges that we have in defending email? Well, first, it is easily the largest and most vulnerable attack surface that every company has. Why? Well, email is still how business is done, even in 2025. Business relationships are still established over email. We still communicate important things over email. And because of that, every company has to have it. Every employee generally has to have an email account. And so it reaches directly into the weakest link that we all have at our companies, which are our well meaning users. And I want to be clear here because I often hear other security professionals. Listen, I get it. We get frustrated, and folks say, "Hey, users are dumb or whatever." That's not necessarily the case. Okay. Yes, of course, there are always outliers. However, on the whole, our users, our employees, they were hired to do a job and they want to do it well. And maybe they haven't been hurt like we have in cybersecurity, and they just aren't as suspicious as we are. I don't know what that upbringing looks like, but candidly, a little bit jealous. The reality is though that they just want to do their jobs and do them well. And so if they were hired to pay bills, they on your finance team, when they get an invoice in, it looks like it's right from the right place for about the right amount. They're not going to typically dig too much deeper. They're just going to pay that invoice. And that's where we see bad actors are preying on the good nature of our people, and that's frustrating. The other aspect is that attack volumes have been just increasing exponentially, especially with the advent of AI. And lastly, those social engineering attacks that are bypassing our traditional security controls. You think about signature-based detection, excuse me, has been around a good long time and has been effective for about 20 years. However, we don't see bad actors leveraging these tried and true methods anymore, right? A malicious link or a malicious attachment. In many cases, they're just trying to start a conversation, and that's been incredibly effective. So when we think about the challenges with email, protecting email, the number one reason is that our threat actors are financially motivated. Unfortunately, BEC or business email compromise continues to work. And how do we know that? Well, here's some data. This is from the FBI's IC3 report, which is released each year. In last year, as you can see, there was actually almost $300 million less lost, $250 million less lost than the previous years. I like to think that it's because the security controls are actually improving. I don't know if that's true. We have seen a big rise in pig butchering instead, going for the whole hog, if you will, through financial retirement scams and those kinds of things. So maybe they're shifting gears a little bit in terms of the methodology, but nevertheless, it continues to be a huge win for the threat actors. And as you can see here, each time that it works, again, just based on the data that we have, it's nearly $130,000 lost each time. I mean, that's like an entire annual salary for many of our security analysts or security engineers. So you can see why threat actors are motivated to use this methodology. Now, bad news. I have good news coming. Don't give up on me. All right, stay with us. But generative AI it's not even going to make it worse. It is actually making it worse today and has been for a little while now. Let's take a look at this and unpack it a little bit. AI attacks are simply too easy to launch now. Here's an example of an AI prompt that we can give and the message that it generates. In this case, we gave it a simple prompt. I want you to craft a prompt or craft a vendor email requesting a bank account update using an agency that Acme Corporation works with. I want you to replace the old account details with mine. Simple, right? And then the AI can respond, and we've seen this live before. I found vendors that are working with Acme Corporation. Here is an accounts payable email from Strategic Growth Marketing, which invoices $120,000 a month. I mean, that sounds legitimate, right? Strategic Growth Marketing. I've heard worse names. And here's the message, right? If you look at this, it's from sgmarketing.com, which sounds legit. I mean, that's if you were creating a domain for that company, that might be what you create. And it says, "Hi Theo, our team works with Chelsea Jones in marketing." I love that it's able to call something out, knowing the audience that it's going to be sending this to. It makes it land so much better. Anyway, Chelsea suggested I contact you. We've changed banks. We need to update the payment details for strategic growth marketing. Here they are. Right? This is simple. And the reality is these things happen every day in business. It's not uncommon for companies to change their banking details. And so these kinds of things occur in real life. And they're really hard to stop because, as I mentioned, right, This is not a known bad sender IP address or domain name, sgmarketing.com. We could have just stood this up for this attack. Sometimes they'll stand them up and wait 6 or 8 months or something so that the domain will age properly, so that many of our security tools won't look at something that's brand new. It also has no threat intel hits in terms of it being a bad sender. It authenticates successfully. We are seeing bad actors going ahead and registering SPF, setting up DKIM and DMARC. This is all really important for them so that our tools, which look for good authentication in terms of the sender, those check out. This is what prevents spoofing. And so in this case, all of those things will check out. And lastly, because there's no malicious link, there's no malicious attachment, it's just a block of text. There's nothing really in the message body for our traditional secure email gateways to analyze. And so we see these working really well. So how might things be different then? Well, let's take a look at what a defensive AI approach might be instead. In what we would identify here in terms of identity context and like a sender mismatch. If we've been working, as we noted early on, strategic growth marketing has been invoicing $120,000 a month for some time. That means we've been seeing emails from them for quite some time. This one would come in from a different domain. That's interesting. That's important to understand. But you have to have the history. You have to have that kind of period of time to understand the differences, even if SPF, DMARC, and DKIM all check out. So we can see that. Not only that, but AI analysis can detect a financial tone to the message. So now we're doing tonality in the message body, even sentiment. We can identify through sentiment analysis, we can identify things like an urgent sentiment, which is often how bad actors try and get you to do things. They convince you you're late on paying this bill, those kinds of things. So those are another way. And lastly, we can remove that message before there's any engagement. I think this is really important that we're not only just removing the message, but we're not just pulling it out of the inbox and dumping it in the trash or the deleted items folder. Because I don't know about you, but I have had lots and lots of, we'll call them inquisitive users, who like to go dumpster diving occasionally, sometimes once a month, sometimes once a week. Some very interesting folks do it daily just to see what's in there. And so, if we're moving dangerous things into the trash can, it's almost like putting, hypodermic needles in the trash can of a toddler's bedroom. Someone's going to get hurt, right? Even though it's just in the trash. So, it's important that we move those things away from them where they can't access them. All right. Now let me give you, don't just take my word for it. I'm going to show you some actual real AI generated attacks that we here at Abnormal have seen. Again, just a little bit of background on this, what you're about to see. If it's in green, this is in the top 10 words predicted to be used next by AI. If it's in yellow, it's the top 100. And if it's in red, it's in the top 1,000. If it's any other color, AI just didn't anticipate it being used next. In other words, the more green you see, the more likely it is that this was written entirely with AI. All right. So here's an example here. This is a classic. It's a credential phishing using brand impersonation. I know you may have to lean into the screen to see the details of this, but I'll just kind of talk you through it. In this case, we have a message that purports to be from Meta for Business, which is Facebook, basically. It is interesting that it comes from an Outlook.com account. I didn't think they were on the best of terms, but weirder things happen. As you can see in this one, though, they're informing that the Facebook page has been found in violation of the community standards and policies. In other words, they're going to entice you to click on a login link that will send you off to something that looks very similar to the actual Facebook login page. They're going to scrape those credentials. In many cases, even if MFA, multi-factor authentication, is enabled, they can man in the middle that as well. So, this is a great way for them to get in. And I know what you're thinking. who cares, right? Who cares if somebody gets your one of your employees' Facebook accounts, right? We're not using that for business. Here's the thing, right? There are still lots of users who reuse their passwords just to make sure, they might choose a really good secure password. That's what I like to tell myself. It helps me sleep at night. But what they often do is reuse that password. So if that password is for their bank account or their Facebook account or Instagram or whatever, that may also be the same password that they can use or that they use in their at their corporate job. So we can do things like credential stuffing and try to break in that way. This is why this is still important. Let's go to the next one here. Oh, BEC, payroll diversion, right? Sometimes called direct deposit fraud. I've seen some of these. In fact, when I tested Abnormal, as I was a former customer before I joined the company, um, we saw this. This was pretty impactful. I had a threat actor who had done some homework, went and found one of our high paid associates by title at least, and went out and created their first last name at gmail.com as an email address. Apparently, they hadn't done that yet and now never can. And also cross referenced their Instagram account, saw that they were posting pictures from Cabo, having a lovely time on vacation, and promptly sent an email to HR and said, "Hey, on vacation. That's why I'm sending this from my personal email account because I don't have access to my corporate account while I'm on vacation, right? Because that's a best security practice." And they went on to say, "Hey, listen, I was so geared up for vacation, I completely forgot. I changed banks at the beginning of the month, and that hotel bill is coming due. So if you could just, redirect my direct deposit to my new bank account, I would be ever so grateful." And the HR person, my HR business partner at that company, replied, "No, you didn't fill out the right form." And I was like, "Yes, finally, saved by the process." And then I scrolled down and I saw those dreaded words, "It's attached for your convenience." And wouldn't you know it, bad actor filled that form out better than any employee in the history of that company, which probably should have been its own red flag, but wasn't for some reason. And she was getting ready to make that change when we caught it. So these things are out there. That's what I want you to know. And as you can see, this one here is very similar in nature to the story I just told you. As you can see, it's overwhelmingly green here. Even when we cross-reference the results that we found, we're using Glitter, by the way, glitter.io, GLTR.io. That's the giant language test room to do the analysis here. But when we cross-reference that with things like OpenAI or GPT-0, both agree this was written with AI. So these things are out there. Now let's talk a little bit about the protections that we've been bringing to bear for about the last 2+ decades and why they just aren't really working as well anymore. So first, let's talk about phishing awareness training. We've been doing that for quite some time. We have secure email gateways that we've brought to bear. Good stuff. And have used many of them over the years. They've saved my bacon many times. When all else fails, we can just send everything to the SIM, right? With additional logging and correlation, that'll protect us. Now let's those are the things we've been doing. Let's unpack those a little bit more. First, when we talk about phishing awareness training or security awareness training, the problem with these has been, historically at least, they're often one size fits all. It's boring, it's dated, the training is not very effective. It doesn't prepare our users for the threats that they see today in the wild. The other aspect of this is that many of our punitive testing programs, the kind where if you fail 3 times, you're invited to find a new job, those have some unexpected, unintended ramifications, right? Many times, what that elicits is users to start reporting everything as phishing. Had this happened at a previous company, a single user reported more than 100 in a day by themselves. And I reached out to them and said, what you doing? And they said, Mick, listen, just got down with a really hard conversation from my manager, and HR was present. I was informed that if I fail one more of these, I can't work here anymore, and I don't want to do that. So I just committed to them. I'm going to report everything I'm not expecting as phishing. That way, I don't get caught again. I was like, oh my gosh, what have we done? We've completely, messed up the idea here, because that volume overloaded my SOC analysts, right? We were getting hundreds and hundreds of these reported a day. This was at a Fortune 500 bank where we were obligated to review and reply to each one in a timely manner, according to our compliance requirements. So, that can be overwhelming in terms of the analyst's ability to keep up with things. Um, so let's keep moving forward here. When we talk about secure email gateways, right? We've been using these for 25 years or more, and they work. They're good. I'm a big fan. However, they are pretty expensive in my experience. Your mileage may vary, of course, but the time to set them up, to configure them, all of the rule writing that you're doing, right? All of these creative detections that you're building, maybe it's keyword searches, all of these different things, that takes so much time and effort to do, to stay on top of. It's also incredibly static. So every time a new, threat vector comes in, we have to start over. We have to write a brand new detection. That takes special skills. That takes personnel. The care and the feeding of these is really high. Not only that, but as I mentioned, because it is rather static, they're not catching novel attacks, whether it's new, never seen before, but also things like social engineering, payloadless malware, as we're calling it these days, things where there's not a malicious link or attachment. What about where links redirect several times? Often they quit after 4 or 5 redirects. And so if the bad guy just redirects enough times, you'll land on the malicious site. Not to mention text in images and screenshots. I've had one of these. Bad actor had taken a screenshot of like an extortion note. Well, my SEG couldn't read the words in the picture, so it sailed right through my multi-million-dollar tech stack and began causing quite a stir when it landed in my users' inboxes. It's these things make them rather ineffective. Well, I know what we'll do when all else fails. We'll just send everything to the SIM. For years, that's what we said. And, the thing is, our SIMs are already consuming logs from your firewalls and your IDS and IPS and EDR, DLP, XDR if you want, CASB, UEBA, FIM, WAF, MFA, SSO. Look, PAM, SAS, DAS, all the letters in the alphabet in any arrangement you want to put them, and yet it doesn't actually make us much safer, right? All of this is fed to the SIM, which feeds a SOAR, which then later feeds a ticketing system. Goodness gracious, friends. We're inundated with data. And the reality is, all of this additional logging and correlation just complicates and slows things down. And it adds cost and infrastructure. I don't know about you, but most of the SIMs I've used over the years, especially in the last few years, have a consumption model where the more data I send it, the more I pay. So this can get wildly expensive very quickly. And as I said, it doesn't actually make us much safer. Now, when it looks, when you add all of this together, it can sometimes feel like it's just you against the charging horde. You're all by yourself, you're just standing firm in the gap, trying to do the best you can. However, I have good news. All hope is not lost. I have some good news coming. So, let me instead give you some ideas about how I think we can make things better going forward. First, that phishing awareness training, I've seen some really good stuff out there that is using AI to make it more relevant, to getting the right training to the right user at the right time. By doing this, you can make sure that you are getting things that are relevant for each role. So, me in security, for a long time, especially if you go back a few years when I was a security analyst, security engineer, I didn't sign things. So, a DocuSign attack for me, right? A phishing test for me that was in DocuSign was very obvious. I didn't sign things in DocuSign, so it didn't make any sense. Same with like an elevated privileges, maybe an Okta, elevated privileges notification to your finance team. That wouldn't make much sense, right? It's not a good fit. With AI, we can now make sure we're using the right kinds of tests for the right people. So that way we make it very personal, very specific, and we're training them for the kinds of attacks that they're seeing day in and day out. I think that's incredibly important. Um, we have something like an AI security mailbox that can automatically review all of those phishing submissions from our users because we do want to encourage them to report things that are unusual or scary or they're just not sure about. That's a These are good things, right? Don't hear what I'm not saying. These are good things that we should absolutely be doing. The challenge is those submissions can quickly overrun our capacity in the security operations center. And so we should be looking for solutions that can automatically review each and every one of those submissions and then reply to the user in real time, letting them know, hey, good job, you actually caught one, and here's how we know that. Or by contrast, actually, this was a legitimate email. Feel free to interact with it. And here's how we know that, right? And it'll list some very specific examples for why we can have trust in that and confidence in that. Those secure email gateways. Good things. Again, don't hear what I'm not saying. Good stuff. I've been using them for years. However, whether you want to overlay them with like an inbound email security, an integrated inbound email security solution that's cloud based, a SaaS solution that sits outside of your tech stack. Or you can just go with your Microsoft native security controls plus something like that. These are incredibly effective for a couple of reasons. Number one, when you sit outside the tech stack and it's a SaaS solution and you're connecting in via API, you can see so much more data. Now we're not restricted to just that north-south traffic that comes through the gateway. Now we can look at all of that internal to internal east-west traffic that we couldn't ever see before. So that's big. Time to value is so much faster. I don't have to wait 3 to 6 months for enough data to cross over my gateway to train it and make it learn. Now we can, force feed. We could do a look back call via API and force feed, those same 90 days worth of logging through the models and train them in minutes and hours rather than days or weeks or months. So that's incredibly useful as well. And instead of just sending everything over for logging and correlation to the SIM, having solutions that can do account takeover analysis and detection using an AI data analyst that allows you to perform natural language queries on data. Look for solutions that offer these things. There are plenty out there. Abnormal does these, of course. That I wouldn't be here otherwise. At the same time, there are some other really good solutions out there that do these things as well. So line them up, test them out, see who wins for you. That's my recommendation. And now I'll give you just a short story. I know we're coming up on time here, but this is something that I was able to do at my last company. Again, I was at that Fortune 500 bank. We did have a punitive phishing program that did inspire folks to send lots and lots of submissions. And so we were struggling to keep up with those. We were spending about 20 hours a week investigating those. I built a homegrown solution along with Stephen Dumold. If you're out there, a dear friend of mine, was recently on a podcast with me. We built this together where it would sandbox links and files It would do analysis, reputation checking on the sender domains, all of these things. Very similar, frankly, to what our segs were doing, but it still missed the socially engineered stuff. So then I did a POV, or a proof of value test of a solution. It was abnormal, and I'll tell you what, the results were night and day. Using machine learning and natural language processing, it was able to consume the message body, identify, the malicious activity, separate sort of the wheat from the chaff, if you will, with a much higher efficacy than we were able to do, even manually, even as a human. And it did that all in moments. And so that backlog of data we were able to crunch through in basically no time. And as I said, it worked. The POC was set up in just minutes instead of hours or weeks. There's no infrastructure to stand up, so it went so much faster. It did identify some social engineering attempts, including that payroll fraud one that I mentioned just a few moments ago. That story that came out of this test. And we were finally able to see who is receiving similar messages. I don't know if you've ever had to do digital forensics in the Microsoft 365 suite. It's challenging, and time consuming, right? You've got to have obscure PowerShell scripts to find everything. This solution allowed me to very quickly identify who else might have gotten an unusual or malicious message. And like I said, I didn't have to babysit that phishing inbox anymore, and our investigations just were done in moments now, minutes versus hours before. So really, really impressive solution there. So that's my personal experience. I think we still have some time for some questions. Mackenzie, can you keep me honest here? Do we have a few moments for a couple of questions?
We absolutely do. Yeah, no worries. So let's cover a few. Great presentation. I really enjoyed that so
Well, thank
far,
you.
and I'm excited to pick your brain a little bit further here.
Yeah, happy to do it.
Awesome. Okay, so first question I've got tagged from the audience is, do you think AI will replace analysts or
Mm.
just change how they work in the SOC?
This is one of the most commonly asked questions that I get as I go out and meet folks all over the world in the security space. I will say today, I don't think that we're going to see it replacing analysts. I don't think it's ready for prime time quite yet. I think there are some really neat agentic AI solutions out there that are coming close, and it won't be long, I suspect, before we're able to do more of at least like the tier one analysis. Um, eh, I don't think we'll ever get rid, like, of security analysts. I don't think we're ever gonna go, "Oh, because of AI, I can now fire these 10 people," right? I don't think that's the way this plays out. The way I see this playing out is we see the AI stuff changing the way we work, supplementing our existing analysts, and yes, maybe someday being able to take on like a tier one analysis. And then what we do with those other users, right, those other analysts, we just redirect them onto more impactful work. I think everyone wins this way. We're getting more bang for our buck in terms of the resources that we all have. Like I said, I don't think we go, oh, we can now let people go. I just don't think that's the way this plays out.
Yeah, I've heard it likened a lot to kind of like the industrial revolution of farming, right? It's like, yes, things changed, but it's not like there's zero human presence in really any industry. It's just
Exactly.
not
Yeah,
really
I think
possible.
human in the loop is going to remain important going forward. Even as AI matures and becomes even like postdoctorate level smart, it's still going to be important that we have humans in the loop, and that there's transparency in what we're seeing and what the AI solutions are doing.
That's great. Yeah, and I think it's an exciting time. It can be scary for some, but I think, as we all see, there's just so many benefits to this, and
Mhm.
especially that busy work, grunt work, keeping your eyes peeled on how many different inboxes and emails, how do you expect a person to do that?
Exactly,
Exactly.
exactly. I mean, the reality is the amount of telemetry that we're able to get out of these solutions today that we have, it gives us unparalleled visibility than we've ever had before. Unfortunately, it's just too much data for us to consume and identify an anomalous activity from that. But that's frankly what machine learning was purpose built for, is consuming just tons and tons of data and identifying that thread of truth that runs through it all.
That's beautiful. Okay, so I have a question here. I know in business, so many things come down to dollars and cents. Does this make sense? So someone's asked, how do you usually convince execs that AI email defense is worth the investment?
Well, I will tell you how I did it, because I think my own story is probably more useful than just my personal thoughts. I will say that try it. In my case, yes, I had. In my case, it was we had a sextortion campaign come through. Did take a screenshot of that extortion note. I think I mentioned that in the presentation. Um, that was the moment that I realized that what I had in place wasn't as effective. It was missing things. The problem with email is you never really know how much it's missing, because if our users don't complain and it doesn't cause an incident, we'll likely never know just how much it's missing. Because our users will quietly ignore stuff, or worse, quietly interact with malicious emails and give things away. So for me, I went ahead and did a POV of a variety of things. The beauty of these SaaS solutions is you can line them all up at the same time. Again, no infrastructure to set up. You just essentially give them credentials into your tenant and then they work.
Mm,
So you can line them all up at the same time and see who wins in terms of efficacy. And for me, again, just being candid and honest here, Abnormal smashed it. It wasn't even close. I think things are closer these days, which is great because then you can bring other things in terms of automation and how much time it's going to save you, how easy it is to manage, as well as the cost. And so you can put all of these things together and see what wins for you. At the end of the day, though, when you do these kinds of tests, you get an actual quantifiable risk, right?
mm.
Something we can take back to leadership and say, now I have documented data around how much is slipping through our tech stack. And these are things that are landing in our users' inboxes today that we need to address. And so for me, I think that's really the best way is to try it, get some empirical data, and then bring that to your leadership and have that conversation at that time.
Awesome. And is trying it easy? Like can someone really try it without a huge investment?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of these API solutions, right? Gone are the days. Now it's all SaaS. Gone are the days when you had to stand up infrastructure, right? I had to work with my infrastructure team. I had to get servers stood up, install the solution, do all of the networking, all of this, and not to mention making MX record changes, those kinds of things. Listen, if you want a resume generating event, break email at your company for just a little while because you're going to get all the attention you could ever want and more, and you may just find yourself hunting for a job. So this is not a low risk test. Was the old secure email gateways, because you had to route your traffic through them and then back to you. That's how they were doing the filtering. And so those were incredibly dangerous and impactful. These days, things are so much easier. You just give them the credentials. It's literally 30 seconds. I actually lost a bet on this, by the way, just being honest. When we set it up, they told me it'd be under a minute. I was like, that's adorable. There's no way. There's
Yeah,
absolutely no way this can be set up in under a minute. And it was. Thankfully, they did not make me pay for lunch that day.
I was
My
gonna
wife
say,
would
how
have
much
killed
did
me.
you lose?
Yeah, thankfully, Sanjay is a very generous, very kind man and did not collect on the bet, though he could have. But yeah, no, it's super easy, super fast. And like I said, you can do a look back call and say, give me the last 30, 60, 90 days of data. And you're now off and running, typically in 10 to 15 business, or 10 to 15 days, not even business days, 10 to 15 days. You
Nice.
can be up and running and getting the full value out of that solution, rather than 3 to 6 months in like a traditional SEG.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the answer to this question I've got in the queue is yes, because you kind of touched on it. But the question is, can AI make phishing training less boring and more effective for employees? And maybe
Yeah.
elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure, yeah, and I think I touched on this a little bit in the, presentation, but, just to double click in a little bit, some of the challenges is that it has been one size fits all for so long. You get these really weird templated, phishing tests that don't make sense. Either they're too good and then everybody clicks them, and then you make them too easy and nobody clicks on them. I mean, the reality is many companies report on the click rates
Mhm,
for phishing tests. It is such an arbitrary metric because we know we can manipulate it any way we want. Oh, you
mhm,
want to sound like you really got it together? Make it real easy. Oh, you want to make it real high and make it scary so that the board gives you more money to buy more stuff? Make it really hard. The reality is, it's not very effective. And so finding a way to get the right training to the right user at the right time is really key. And I think that's where AI is going to allow us to do that. And we're seeing that today, right? There's some really neat things out there. Abnormal's got some neat solutions. I've seen other stuff as well. Take a look at these, right? Just upgrade what you're doing because no matter how great the security controls are that we bring to bear, there will always be humans in the loop that need to be protected.
mhm.
Think about how folks go home, they're off your network, they're on their cell phones, we're getting attacks via WhatsApp. I mean, SMS phishing or smishing. They're coming, bad actors are finding ways to hit your folks outside of your purview. And so they need to be hardened. They need to be trained and made aware of the kinds of attacks that they face today. And I think AI is really going to improve things here.
That's great, and that's actually something in your presentation I liked when you said the right attacks for the right people. Because
Mhm.
I do sometimes I get a like phishing test and I'm like, really, you're like this is, I would never click on this, but at the
Thank
same
you.
time, like you're saying, like if you did some specific thing, like you did something with your bank and you made a change, or you are going on a trip for your
Mhm.
company and you get something at the right time and you're tired or you're busy, it's like, that little chink in the armor. So I think, like you said, just really hardening people to be hyper vigilant and like catch those small suspicious flags
Mhm.
is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, we might have to wrap it up here. I know we're getting close to time, but we've had a lot of great questions, a lot of comments here from the audience. So, if someone's enthused, they want to take some next steps with you, or if you want to even just leave some sort of poignant thought or anything with the audience as a wrap up, I'm going to pass it over to you for that.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks, Mackenzie. I appreciate it. I will say one last thing is, as I mentioned early on, just get a risk assessment. Plug one of these things in. See what's slipping through your tech stack today. Here at Abnormal, we do offer a free risk assessment. If you go to abnormal.ai/risk, you can sign up for that. As I mentioned, the plugin's like 30 seconds, and then a week or 10 days, they're going to give you a report of everything they found that was slipping through your tech stack. At least then you're aware, right? Buy it, don't buy it. Find a solution that meets your needs. Talk to your current tech stack vendors and figure out why it was missing things, whatever the case may be. But you can't, you can't protect yourself from the threats you can't see. So at least do something like this and find out what's slipping through your tech stack. That's what I would really encourage you to do. Do evaluate your vendors at renewal every year and identify ones that are leveraging AI at their core. I think that's where you're going to really see good AI being used to battle the use of bad AI, and that's really going to be impactful going forward.
Mick, really wise words. It's been such a pleasure to hear from you, to learn from you today, and also to pick your brain with some of these questions. So, thanks again for being here.
Yeah, thanks, McKinsey. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
My pleasure. Talk to you soon. All right, everyone. If you do want to check out that risk assessment, it is linked in the audience console under the docs tab. So definitely do go in there, bookmark it so that you and your team or those on your organization who would benefit from it can take advantage of that. We're going to be wrapping things up in the next couple minutes here. So definitely don't sleep on that awesome opportunity. Make sure you hop in there and grab it now. Now, before we get to our final prize drawing, we have one quick favor to ask of you all today. Deanna is opening up a quick survey that we'd really appreciate if you could all fill out. Again, this is a short little survey for those of us here on the ATM team. We just want to learn a little bit more, want to get a sense of how we're doing, what you all like, what you don't like about the sessions. Also, we want to get a sense of, are we delivering events the way you'd like to deliver them, and make sure that in the future we're constantly meeting your needs. So we'll give you all just a quick minute to fill that out. Again, it should pop up there where your chat docs Q&A has been living. So you'll see that. Takes just a minute at most. So we'd really appreciate you doing that. Thank you in advance. Okay, with that, I believe it is prize time. Quick reminder, we have got a $250 Amazon gift card up for grabs here. And without further ado, today's winner is Petra Leonard from Massachusetts. Congratulations, Petra. As always, we're going to be in touch about claiming your prize after the event, and we'll get that sent over to you lickety split. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech team, well, I just want to thank Abnormal AI one more time for making this event possible. Giant thank you to our speaker, Mick, for being here, taking all those audience questions, and otherwise just giving us so much to think about. I hope all of you in the audience are feeling lit up, excited, ready to take some next steps, or at least learn something today of value that you can take forward and share with your organization, your community, or for your personal development. And again, I want to thank all of you for being here. I know it's an era in which there's so much going on. Everyone's competing for our time, for our attention. So I hope you found some value here. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day and logging in and logging on and being here with us and being interactive. So again, thanks so much. And until next time, I'm wishing you a fantastic rest of your days. If you do want to check out other webinars in the future, well, you can take that QR code on your screen, scan it, go to events.actualtechmedia.com, check out what's on the calendar, or linked in your docs tab is the same link to our calendar for all those future webinars. So until then, until the next webinar, have a great day, everybody. Take care.